The 2021 Pitt football season hasn't quite finished yet, but a transfer from sunny Southern California has already got Panther fans thinking about how high they can reach in 2022. We talk about that and more on this week's Hail to Pitt podcast.
What was your message about finishing it in these final 30 minutes?
Well, it happened in West Virginia where we knocked off number 2. It happened in South Carolina, and it's happening in Pittsburgh today. Our guys had a lot of guts tonight. We're just going to keep getting better. I mean, that's what it is.
One hell of a game that you will never, ever forget. We shocked the world!
Hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt. This is the week of December 25th, 2021, and this is the Hail to Pitt podcast. I'm Alan.
And I'm Vince.
When you win, everyone wants to join in on the fun, and now Pitt has landed its biggest transfer portal score in school history with the addition of Kedon Slovis from USC. Fight on, Pat Narduzzi. Vince, we did it. I'm crediting you and I most of all.
I'm not quite sure how much we had to do with this. Probably not much, but
campaign. We campaigned hard.
We did. We were talking about him last week. A lot of rumors really heating up. A lot of smoke to go around with this fire. And Pitt has got a transfer quarterback coming in, a guy with a lot of experience. We're going to be breaking it all down on this week's show. Got to think that he's going to be the front runner to under center when we kick it off against West Virginia next season.
Great boogamoogly, as Craig Wolfley would say. Oh my God, this is great news. We are recording the show a little earlier in the week, not only because it's the Christmas holiday this week. Merry Christmas, everybody! Early Christmas present for Pitt fans, but also we were at a restaurant because we're in front of each other right now, celebrating the holidays. You're hitting the road, and we were at a restaurant, and we saw the news on our phones and screamed out loud in the restaurant, and both our wives had to shut us up before we got too rowdy. So we said, you know what, let's channel it to doing an early recording this week. So here we are.
Yeah, a lot to talk about here. Just extremely hyped for what is possibly gonna happen next season, even though this season isn't even over yet. And there's still a lot of work to be done.
There's a whole other bowl game that we're going to break down thoroughly, we promise, next week. But this big news is what it's all about today. And, of course, the future of the program, super exciting for most, but maybe not for some of the quarterbacks in the room currently. Let's talk about that, too, today. And, of course, we want to hear from you at H2P Show on Twitter. If you want to give us your thoughts on the big transfer portal score for Pat Narduzzi and the Pitt Panthers, hit us up there at H2P Show, or email if you want to send something longer than 200 and whatever characters. You want to send us an attachment of the time you met Kedon Slovis when you were vacationing out in California and you were hitting up the Whiskey A Go-Go and you've got incriminating photos. We want to see them. Hail the number 2 Pitt podcast at gmail.com. I doubt Kedon Slovis was partying like I used to on the Strip, Vince, but nonetheless, SoCal boy. Actually, he's from Arizona, right? He's originally from Arizona. Yes, but, of course, coming from USC, he's going to bring some of that Hollywood swag, we hope. The same that Kenny Pickett really had, and he's from Jersey. It's just inside you. It doesn't matter. We appreciate the feedback, though, on social media. And, of course, for the hardcore Pitt fans on Panther Lair and on Reddit, we appreciate you as well. We're lurking. We're talking to you there, too. We see you rumor mongering, especially at a time like this. It's really entertaining to see the build-up to this signing, but appreciate all that love. Shout out to BMZ32 on Panther Lair as well, who's showing us love every week, Vince.
Yeah, he always liking the show, and we all appreciate that feedback each and every week on the H2P show, because it seems like it's getting bigger and bigger each week.
Oh, it is, and when they're winning, we're all winning. We're working hard on putting out fun shows and interesting shows, and this one should be pretty good, even though it might be a little short, Vince, but good thing. Impromptu. We hollered at our great sponsors who help us put the show together. They said, let's rock, and of course, we're talking about Pretty Easy Podcasts. You can go to prettyeasypodcast.com right now to get your own show started. on a whim, you have a partner who's going to help you podcast when you need to podcast, edit, record, get it done, make it sound good, and have fun doing it without the stress. It's supposed to be fun podcasting. Even though it's some people's job these days, it can be the most fun job in the world and the most fun hobby. It doesn't matter whether you're a novice, you're doing it just for funsies with friends, or if you're hardcore going to go into it. Pretty Easy Podcast is the place to go. Check it out now at prettyeasypodcast.com.
And they make podcasting pretty easy.
Do you think that it's going to now be easier to recruit for Pat Narduzzi because he was able to land a player like Kedon Slovis? In the transfer portal? Can Pitt just solely rely on transfer portal players?
I don't know.
Tennessee was this year.
I don't think that's healthy to do that every year. But I will say this: you got to think it's impressive for Pat Narduzzi to go out and land a high caliber kid, at least somebody that we think very highly of. And you look at Kedon Slovis. He talked about this in that Players Tribune article that he wrote, Alan, talking about, hey, there's a lot coming back for me to work with here. You got a Bolitnikoff winning receiver. You got a couple other really good receivers. You got that Bartholomew guy, tight end. You got possibly your whole offensive line coming back, and you got a stable of 3 running backs that you can hand the ball off to and just move the football down the field that way. There's a lot to like here. I'm not necessarily saying that Kedon Slovis is going to be Kenny Pickett right off the bat, but he's going to have some tools to work with. There's no doubt about that, and it's definitely an attractive position for any transfer to come here. And I would say any high school quarterback that Pitt would be interested in. It seems like Pat Narduzzi's really amassing a fair amount of talent here on the offensive side of the ball. It all clicked together this year, and it looks like it's set up to click together for years to come.
This is really cool, that the day and age we live in, not just because the transfer portal itself exists, but the transfer portal, along with the ability of players to express themselves, make money off their name, image, and likeness, have a little bit of freedom, and we actually don't have to really speculate on, why do we think Kedon Slovis went to Pitt? He spelled it all out. He has a Players Tribune article. If you're a Pitt fan, I'd say it's a must-read. He laid it all out there, and yes, he did name the Bolitnikoff winner himself, Jordan Addison, as a big reason why this is a interesting and smart decision he felt to make. And he's coming to Pittsburgh from USC, which has been done before. It has been done before. Maybe not to the success that we were all hoping, but I think this is an even more high-profile Trojan quarterback Pitt's getting this time around compared to Max Brown.
Yeah. Max Brown, that was a 5-star quarterback, a guy that certainly looked the part, and didn't quite have the career he was looking for at Southern Cal. And at Pitt, it started off slow. Certainly with not nearly the kind of offensive firepower that Pitt has right now, but it was starting to get a little bit better. I will say that they were starting to get their mogination going a little bit, but then a season-ending injury for him, and that was all she wrote for Max Brown. Kedon Slovis, on the other hand, I believe this guy was only a 3-star quarterback on some recruiting services, Alan, but he went in from day one, or maybe not necessarily day one, but year one, and started for the USC Trojans as a true freshman. Started 10 games his freshman year, Alan, 10 games in 2019, throwing for 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, 9 interceptions in those 10 games. And I remember going in, after that season was over, talking about that 2020 season. I mean, he was looked at as a possible Heisman candidate going in there. And then 2020 had that the COVID shortened year, especially in the Pac-12. Only played 6 games. They won their first 5 games. An undefeated regular season, lost the Pac-12 championship game to Oregon. But in those 6 games, 1,900 yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and then still kind of considered a Heisman candidate, a dark horse Heisman candidate going into this season, 2021, and then things just kind of came apart injury-wise for him, and firing their coach very early in the season. Only started 8 games for the Trojans, 2,100 yards, 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. So not a great year in 2021. Injuries and all kinds of other turmoil happening for him. But if we can get the guy that we saw in 2019, I think that's going to be very big for this Pitt program. And just by comparison here, we're talking about these numbers. 2019, his best season, which he only played 10 games, mind you, only 10 games, 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns. Kenny Pickett, in this great 2021 Heisman finalist season that he just had, in how many games did he play this year so far? He played 13 games total, 13 games, 4,300 yards, 42 touchdowns. So, a difference in the number of games, but also, comparable, in terms of yards at least. They were on track for each other, and, touchdowns, somewhat similar pace there. So, you're getting a guy who's shown to put up some big time numbers. Alan, if you look at some of this stuff, maybe a little bit more higher interception counts than what you would like. Although, as we said, playing with certainly those last couple seasons that he had there, not quite the USC talent of old that some are used to. Really banged up and not great offensive line. Only a couple strong wide receivers, not a whole lot at the running back position. I know you've been following the Pac-12, Alan, closer than I have,
Always. So
I'd like to hear what you have to say about Kedon Slovis and what he did in Southern California.
Well, the thing about Kedon Slovis is, from what I know about the player, from what I've seen, is his best days were, his freshman year, and injuries were the big thing, and that contributed to the program going into a rut and then firing Clay Helton. But he's not to blame, because he was really the bright spot in what was a really subpar offensive line, a team with skill players galore that just underperform all the time. And he was in there in some games. If you watched him play, especially his freshman year, the thing about him, damn, this guy could go in there and be in pressure-packed situations, comebacks, on the road, winning games that they weren't supposed to win, and also being there in the pocket with just guys all up in his face, getting pressure. And he really isn't the kind of quarterback that's going to panic. He'll be a guy who will stand tall in a pocket. He'll be a guy who will wisely scramble and can. Of course, his injuries are something to be aware of, but the toughness that we talked about with Kenny Pickett, I think there's a similar spark of that in Kedon Slovis. Obviously, he has to prove himself at that level, but you have seen some of that from what he did at USC, and that's probably a big reason why Narduzzi wanted to go after the guy.
A guy with tremendous accuracy, throwing the football, has a strong enough arm to get the ball deep.
Maybe a stronger arm than Kenny Pickett, who's probably going to, I think, get knocked in the combine for arm strength.
Very well could. That remains to be seen. But not a guy that's willing to stand in there and make the best throw he possibly can. He didn't run a tremendous amount at Southern Cal at all. Although I'm not going to say I wouldn't say he's slow by any stretch.
I would probably put him on the level of Kenny Pickett. Is he going to create a fake slide, illegal maneuver? No, he's not that kind of smart player. No one is. But I think he's going to be serviceable with his legs at least a little bit. Hopefully he won't need to, with potentially a veteran offensive line in front of him going into next season. And that might get Pitt preseason ACC picks because of a lot of returning guys.
That's a lot. What we were talking about tonight was Clemson still going to get the most hype, and maybe as they should, based on talent alone
and money. and mostly money.
And Miami, they, with a new coach and a standout freshman quarterback and all the talent they have, you got to think that ACC writers are going to have them at the top of that Coastal Division preseason. There's always going to be a team like an NC State or North Carolina who's going to get ranked pretty high preseason just based on the nature of the conference. You got a Virginia Tech who seems to always be ranked in the top 3 regardless of what they do. You got Cunningham coming back at Louisville. I imagine that he's going to get some votes there. And there was all these questions about what, Pitt is going to look like without Kenny Pickett and how valuable he was to this team. And no doubt he was extremely valuable. But now you're bringing in an experienced player who's shown to play in big-time moments at a big-time school. And, has he been perfect as of late? No. But this is a guy who's done a lot in his college career, and it definitely answers some of those questions that they have at that position and on offense. So you got to think, with all the talent Pitt's going to have coming back, that you got to think that they will at least be ranked in the top 3 or 4 preseason in the conference, I'd imagine, and certainly a top 25 team, maybe a top 15 team.
I mean,
in the country.
The defending ACC champs better damn well be in the top 25 nationally. I don't even want to start thinking about that. That'll aggravate me. But the exciting thing is, and this is what we talked about, the potential of this and all the transfer portal quarterbacks out there. Who would we like to see? Would we like to see one come to Pitt? And this was the one of the few I think we said, and I know I said, I'd like to see. And we got him. And I'm excited because he is so much, I feel like, Kenny Pickett, a guy who played early in his career, maybe had some ups and downs. Kenny Pickett wasn't a Heisman candidate going into this season. It wasn't a Heisman caliber player. He was just a solid quarterback who was learning and willing to learn and had obviously great coaching. Give it up to Mark Whipple for what he did with Kenny Pickett, I say. That's going to be the next interesting thing to see, too, is who do they have coaching Slovis at Pitt, because it won't be Mark Whipple, unfortunately. But he, in terms of ability, temperament, it feels like Pitt is set up to let Kenny Pickett go and replace him with someone who could be maybe not his equal, but serviceable in the same kind of way and get Pitt into the conversation in the ACC. You have to be hyped for this. This is a Christmas gift to Pitt, because without Kedon Slovis coming to Pitt, the future was just a way bigger question mark. Is it to say that Nick Patti is not a serviceable quarterback? No. Is it to say that Pitt would have no chance with Nick Patti? No. Can Nick Patti still beat out Kedon Slovis? I don't know. Maybe.
He could.
Things happen in camps. Obviously, won't be the favorite to do that. But there's just way more question marks with those players compared to a guy who played for 3 years at one of the biggest schools in all of college football, one of the brightest lights you could possibly have as a quarterback in college.
Yeah, I've been very vocal about how I feel good about Nick Patti. I feel good about Davis Bevel. I feel good about Nate Yarno. But those guys are all question marks. Guys that we haven't seen very much of. Some of them haven't seen any at all.
And, in regular old college football, that's fine because that's just what it is. But this is 2021 where all the money on the line, the coach's job's on the line, everybody, all the pressure, there's way more pressure. Going with something that, like a transfer portal with proven players, free agents for all intents and purposes, is a smarter play, too, for coaches. So that's how you have to play the game.
Yeah, and Pitt has, and we talked, Pitt has a lot returning, and enough returning that this may not be a rebuild type season after Kenny Pickett. That they can make another run. This could be the difference between a 10-2 season and an 8-4 season. This kind of move right here, yes, it would be great if Nick Patti or one of the other guys just took control of this quarterback situation and end up being the starter. But they're going to have that much more competition with Kedon Slovis. Now, I'm not naive here. I know that if Kedon Slovis is coming here, he's coming here to start. There's no doubt about that. And if you believe what you may see in some of this rumor and innuendo that Notre Dame was after him and some other schools, he came here to start. And you got to be thinking coach isn't going to say he's handed the job. He's going to say that he's going to have every opportunity to compete, and there's going to be a big time competition. But he's going to be the guy. Barring some disaster, he's going to be the guy coming out of this.
And also, we need to clarify, I think, because sure, you can have skepticism that Kedon Slovis is coming to Pitt and he had injuries at USC, but he's still not less than a year ago going into the season was a guy people were saying, oh, he might be a Heisman candidate. He has the tools, and in today's college football, especially let's go talk to our older Pitt Panther fans who might think, he's a transfer. He couldn't hack it at USC, so he's coming to Pitt. That is not the case anymore. You can't look at transfer players that way anymore, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Some of the best players are going to be transfer portal players.
Yeah, it's interesting, that whole dynamic, and that there's
a bunch of variables. You can't just say the guy didn't make it there because he stinks. The guy didn't make it there, A, injury. 2, the regime was terrible. The coaches were terrible. They all got fired. Yeah. It's a whole new era.
And Allie, I mean, you were spending time in LA, while he was out there. I mean, you could speak to the kind of pressure this kid was under. He was on billboards. He was he was
even in LA now, where USC is not what it was 15, 16, 17 years ago. But playing at USC, there is still a certain amount of pressure that a college football quarterback will feel compared to what the Pitt quarterback is going to feel. It's a little bit different. I think it's a more relaxed, comfortable situation if you're going to Pitt playing quarterback versus going to USC to play quarterback. There's way more opportunity probably at USC, money-wise, while you're in college. Both places could get you to the NFL.
Yeah.
But it's just it's different. It's a different spotlight. So he has thicker skin, I think, coming here.
The Viper Room versus the Oaklander is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's people have different speeds. Maybe the Viper Room isn't your speed, Kedon Slovis. Well, why don't you come over here and you try out Jax?
I think that's exactly what this is. I really do.
Although I hope he's not. I'm gonna make my NIL pitch to Kedon Slovis. Did I tell you this? I've been plotting this too.
No, you haven't told me.
Yeah, I'm gonna make my NIL pitch to Kedon Slovis. I'm not gonna give him any money, but I'm just gonna offer my services. Our services as just concerned fans who want to see him and the team succeed. We'll look out for him. We'll produce a podcast for him. We'll keep him out of trouble. I'll drive him all over town if he needs. I think this is the kind of things fans need to do. Offer it with, and if you get paid a little bit, maybe from one of his other sponsors, that's a way to do it.
Well, I don't know if you could just do that directly. I mean, there are some rules and regulations there.
I thought it was freewheel and just money exchange and no more backmen.
Not quite. That's a topic for another show. This is big here. You talked about injury problems that he's had. We've heard about arm fatigue. We've heard about elbow injuries. Didn't
they make him throw like a billion times?
That's a question I have, and it's I mean, there's probably only so much level of tampering that's tolerable in college football transfer portals, but Did Pitt doctors check him out to know what his health is before they, brought him in? I imagine that they had to do some homework on his current health and the current state of his arm.
I wonder because he gets a scholarship, right?
Yeah, he does.
He takes a scholarship spot.
He will take a scholarship spot.
Can other students at the university getting scholarships be examined for health? For their health, having your shots.
Well, you usually do get some sort of physical or something. That's kind of after the scholarship has been accepted. So I don't know why, for like an incoming freshman. Now, for something like this, I don't know. I mean, this is, if he were to come here and his arm would be shot, you have no backup. You can't go out and acquire somebody else. Now, I suppose, in the spring, after spring games and spring practices and people are disgruntled with their, position on the team, I'm sure there's going to be some others transferring out at that time, but that's not an ideal time to go out and get somebody. You want somebody right now.
It's perfect time,
to participate in those just in time for Christmas and to participate in those spring practices. That's what's important. A lot of people can't stress that enough. Those spring practices there, especially breaking a new quarterback, new offensive coordinator. To some degree that we don't know about, a new quarterback coach. So that's going to be very important to make sure he's in here and ready to go. But I still, as I said, you still got some quality quarterback guys that I feel good about, and especially if you trusted your quarterback recruiting, then you got to feel good about these other guys on the roster. Maybe you don't feel great about them starting right away. Maybe they're still too young. They've only been in the program a year or two. But eventually you're going to have to turn it over to those guys, I would think. Maybe not with the transfer portal. Maybe you don't have to. But you're still going to have some of those level guys on the roster. And I wanted to ask you, Alan, what would you do? You got 4 other quarterbacks that are there. You got Patti, you got Bevel, you got Yellen. And Yarnell. What would you do with those guys? What do you think's going to happen? Because and we'll get to this. We think based on some comments from Kenny Pickett, it sounds like Nick Patti is going to be starting this ball game.
Yeah,
this Peach Bowl.
Kenny Pickett said on the Kenny Pickett show, right, that he'll be in Atlanta in the booth talking into Nick Patti's ear.
Now maybe Nick Patti's ear is the one that's on the sideline giving signals to somebody else.
Yeah,
now, we don't know that for sure, and we haven't heard Coach officially say who's going to be the starter in this ball game.
I trust Kenny, and that's what I read into that too. But now my other question is Kedon Slovis going to be sitting next to Kenny?
I don't know if he'll be doing that, but I'm sure he'll be watching from wherever he is.
The 4 quarterbacks.
Yes, yeah. I think, well, first of all, Joey Yellen, I think people are going to be yelling at him to get out of town.
Yeah.
Is kind of what that sounds like.
Yeah, go play at, I don't know, Youngstown State.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Didn't work out.
No. It'd be his second transfer. He's got the eligibility. I think under these transfer portal rules, I think if he were to transfer somewhere else, because I wouldn't think he would have a degree yet. Your second time you have to wait a full season.
Unless I think maybe if he would drop down to an FCS level, maybe he could play right away. I don't know exactly how that works. But anyway, I don't think he's going to be the one that's here.
He is not one that he was the low man on the totem pole.
Now I would hope that we would go, I would like to keep all 3 of those other guys. I would absolutely love that. Now, a guy like Slovis, he's going to be coming in here with 2 years of eligibility remaining. But you got to think, he's already played 3, and he's going to have he has that extra year due to the COVID year. If he has a huge year, like we would hope in 2022, then he's going to be gone after this year. So if you're a Bevel or a Yarnell, you're saying, okay, I'm going to learn for 1 more year, and then it'll either be my sophomore or my junior year is when I'm going to be starting, and I'm going to have 2 to 3 years to play.
Perfectly acceptable for those guys.
Yes, and that's kind of how it's been. And
I don't think they have a lot of people in their ears saying, leave now. Unless they say you just sit there, they're going to keep looking for greener grass every time someone leaves.
Well, see, Mark Whipple, the quarterback coach, he's not here. He's not, so they don't have the coach that recruited them is not here anymore. So are they going to get along with the new quarterback coach, the new offensive coordinator? We don't know. We don't know if that new guy is going to want him. But I will say, Bevel, this is a guy who was a 4-star recruit, certainly looks the part, and I could definitely see the improvement from last year to this year. I think he looked much better, even in very limited times. But looking even at the spring game there, you could tell he looked better. I would hope that they can keep him, because I still feel good about him. Yarnell, we don't really know anything about, although the coach did kind of hint that he could be a good player in the future. But, this is an ideal situation. You don't want to have to push these guys into the lineup if they're not ready.
But it's ideal. But you must be very careful with the offensive coordinator hire.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you brought it up. Whipple's gone. He recruited them. If he goes, that really is an incentive for them and an excuse for them to leave. Yeah. Why do I want to be here? The people that brought me here aren't here. And a lot of people get recruited to a place and they have different standards, they different beliefs. Oh, I came to this place because of the coaches, or I came to this place because of the place, or I made a commitment, I'm just going to stick through it. Everyone's different. I don't fault anyone for making the decision for themselves. Just like I still can't believe people get mad at Kenny for not playing this game. I don't care. But for those guys, they're young still, so I think even sticking it out and seeing what's next at the offensive coordinator position, Pitt has a good chance of keeping them both. I would put money on that.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. We don't know them.
I think that would be good.
We don't know them personally. We don't know exactly what they're thinking, but you would just say as an outsider and everything in front of them, how much time they can still have at Pitt, it makes sense for them to stay. Nick Patti is a different story.
Yeah, Nick Patti, that's going to be interesting.
Time's running out.
Maybe he has a huge Peach Bowl, and maybe that's a good audition and somebody wants to take him on a flyer for 1 year, maybe. I would love to keep Nick Patti here for another season, even as the backup. I think, just with his experience, and kind of an extra coach on the sideline. A tough runner. Maybe you put him in a goal line package situation, as we saw them do last year. Even maybe if Slovis is, not. Maybe if his arm is having some problems and maybe the young guys aren't quite ready, maybe you get Patti in there a little bit more. So I would love to keep those three guys plus Slovis coming in here. You're not bringing in a freshman quarterback, at least not yet, that we haven't seen. Maybe they're not done. They were recruiting Chubba Purdy, a freshman out of Florida State. Maybe they're going to bring him in as well. We don't know that, but where we sit right now, I would like to be going in there with 4 quarterbacks. I know that's a lot of reps to go around, but I still would feel a lot more comfortable going in with 4. I think it's worth the scholarships because it's such an important position. You can't afford to be thin at that position.
And no red shirts available anymore either for any of them.
Well, you could. Well, no. They've used up all that.
They're all used.
Yes, they're all used.
So they're sitting there during the season, all 4 of them, hopefully.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bet on it. I think
Patty. You think one's going to leave?
I mean, I think Nick Patti's going to go. I think Nick Patti's going to go somewhere, but I just don't see Do you see an FBS school wanting him? There's no tape on him except a couple games and some plays here and there the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, if you look at, I suppose an FBS school or maybe a group of 5 school would want. I have no idea. I mean, that's with some of these transfer quarterbacks, a lot of times it's, maybe a young guy going to a different situation or a guy who's had a lot of.
He doesn't scream transfer portal guy to me.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like, unless he's going to maybe an FCS school where he's gonna be the guaranteed starter there, which I suppose could happen. What a story! Wins the Peach Bowl and then goes to James Madison and wins the national title.
What a huge game the Peach Bowl becomes now for Nick Patti.
Yeah, absolutely.
What an opportunity.
Could go down as a legend for winning a New Year's Six bowl game. How many Pitt quarterbacks have done that? And not many.
And then going off to play at Arizona State or someone.
I mean, the last big major bowl game that not counting that Fiesta Bowl disaster in 2004 was the 82 Sugar Bowl, and maybe, Marino and Patti. Those are the two guys. People may forget about Kenny Pickett after this Peach Bowl. Who knows?
I could see it happening next year with Kedon Slovis at least. Probably not, though. But this is interesting now for the Peach Bowl for other reasons, more than winning. The Peach Bowl becomes important now for the future of Nick Patti, the quarterback position. And I just got to say again, the offensive coordinator hire is so big. What does Pat Narduzzi do? How does it affect the quarterback room? And what's the future plan for that position? Because then this thing kind of can snowball. If you take your eye off the ball and recruiting freshman quarterbacks and compiling too many or too few, you can wind up relying too much on the transfer portal, which I see a future where maybe you can get away with it in some positions, but you don't want to do that at quarterback.
I've heard a lot of outrage about this transfer portal. People complaining about guys that are transferring, only staying 1 year somewhere. You recruit a guy for 4 years and then he transfers after one. And I know the arguments about coaches can pick up and leave at any time, and then players should be able to do the same. But I think it's going to go back to a situation where you got to get a degree or some level of credits completed or something like that in order to prevent this constant movement all the time with no sitting out penalty. I think something like that is going to happen to throttle this down a little bit.
You think there will be a new rule introduced by the NCAA?
I think if the NCAA still exists, I think I think there will be something. That's my prediction. But I don't think you can rely on this every single year because you gotta get. I don't think it's healthy to do that because you gotta be able to bring somebody up in your system. That's the one big risk about this. We're all excited right now, but you're talking about a new quarterback and a new offensive coordinator / quarterback coach. So you are shaking some things up a little bit, despite all the returning talent.
It is. It's on paper. It's a sexy signing, a sexy transfer, but also that is a big change for a lot of people. Not just the new guy coming in, but everyone adjusting to him. So we'll see how it shakes out. But it seems like something to be excited about. I would call it a Christmas present, not a miracle, because when you win the ACC, there are no miracles, just hard work. We, not me. Even though Pitt won the ACC, though, Vince, they are now underdogs in the Peach Bowl.
Yes, they are, Alan. So, we've been following this a little bit. Pitt opened as, a 3-point favorite, a 4-point favorite in some areas. And, you saw this news, maybe Kenny Pickett wasn't going to play, maybe Mark Whipple was going to be out of town. And then, that news came out and slowly, this has changed. And, you'd think a Kenny Pickett-less team, well, how much do you think Michigan State would be favored by in this game?
2.5.
Well, you're pretty close to being right. I'm seeing, anywhere from, 3 at most places. So I'm looking at Pinnacle, Caesars, William Hill, DraftKings. Those are 3-point favorites, a 2.5-point favorite for Michigan State at the Golden Nugget, the Mirage, and the Wynn. Only a 2-point favorite at the Westgate Superbook in Las Vegas.
Well, yeah, and that's also if you're thinking, it would have been about a touchdown. Well, don't forget Kenneth Walker is not playing for Michigan State, who's an amazing running back, and so they have guys that are sitting out as well.
Yep. So, we talked about this a little bit when we saw the matchup. Michigan State's pass defense not very good. Pitt's running defense pretty good. So, Pitt, we thought it was kind of a good matchup here. I imagine that there's going to be some, outbursts from the public here to say, oh, well, if Kenny Pickett's not there, this team's no good. But I don't know if that's the case. I guess we're going to find out next week at this Peach Bowl Thursday at 7 p.m. Cannot be more hyped for this game. But right now, the Panthers a slight underdog here with Nick Patti at the helm.
I'm excited about it because, even if Pitt loses, I'll be very upset, of course. But you're not losing a championship. Your program, it doesn't take a huge hit. It feels like a win-win for Michigan State and Pitt. You go out there, a bunch of young guys get a chance to get playing time. They get opportunities to, if they're going to transfer, show other schools what they could do. They get to go out there, and everyone's going to praise Pat Narduzzi for getting Kedon Slovis now. We'll hear a lot of that talk. And I think it only does good things right now in the immediate future for the Pitt program. And then if Kedon Slovis comes in and is successful at Pitt, my God, watch the floodgates open. All the kids are going to want to play quarterback at Pitt. Pitt is not only going to have the best defensive lines, the craziest cornerbacks who just joined the cult of Narduzzi, and then now they're going to be a quarterback destination. It could happen that quickly.
Well, that's we talked about last week when we were going over the recruiting. You can't just have just one big year. That's not going to get you a ton of recruits. You got to be able to sustain some success year in and year out.
Remember that year UCF won the national title, kind of.
That's like a far distant memory right now.
I'm putting on shades though for the rest of this show because our future is bright. I'm feeling it.
You look at you got to be able to string together multiple big seasons. That's how you get respect. That's how you get on national television channels,
respectable cable channels.
Yep. Even network television that people respect. You got to put up, big seasons. Time after time. Pitt's finally got this big season here. And they're going to have an opportunity next year to have another big one, and it's going to start off with this backyard brawl.
Oh, my God.
We think, we haven't had the official schedule released yet. But
and also think about this, though. Kedon Slovis coming into Pitt, and that's if he plays the first game that he's going to be playing in, he can't rely on – he can't say Kenny, so what should I expect in this brawl? Who's like, man, I don't know. I don't know nothing about that. Why don't you call Tyler? And he's going to have to call Tyler Palco.
Yeah, probably him and then Dave Wanstead will probably be the two he calls up first.
It's going to be fun, too, because it's a lot of the same, hopefully, for Pitt next year, but that's a huge new game, new rivalry revisited that has to hopefully it's a totally new regime. It's basically square one when you talk about that game next year, which is so big to us. Everyone on that team has no idea.
Yep, they don't. But I think though that there's going to be, especially with a preseason ranking, that I think they could have. There's going to be a lot of talk in the off season. There's rumors of this game being played on the Thursday night to open the college football season. That big Thursday night. If that happens, there's going to be a tremendous amount of. It's going to be a night game. There's going to be a tremendous amount of hype for the game. I think the players are going to realize the importance very quickly.
I wonder if that was a selling point to Kedon Slovis.
I'm sure it was. Yeah,
man. What the game you get to start your career at Pitt if you come here. Forget that UCLA game. That's lame. No one cares about that anymore.
Playing in a half-empty Rose Bowl.
Yeah, right. Who wants to do that? There will be couches burning around the stadium.
Win or lose.
Win or lose. But no, I'm super hyped for next season. Just thinking about it, we were doing a lot of that because we saw the Kedon Slovis news, and we said, "Oh my God, what can next year be?" Obviously, transfer portal quarterbacks. It could wind up, total miss. It's happened before with a USC quarterback at Pitt, but I feel like we discussed it now. It feels a little bit different, a little bit more seasoned of a quarterback in college football. Obviously, Max Brown had a high pedigree, but what we've seen Kedon Slovis do in the Pac-12 should get you excited, Pitt fans, no doubt. And then if he shows up, my God, the future for Pitt football, you got to feel good about it right now. And I feel like people feel like Pitt's already ahead of the game. Vince, I was on the Pitternet the rest of our dinner after the news came out, seeing people gloat, talk about how a 10th national title might be somewhere down the road. I mean, a lot of people just looking down the road and seeing good things.
Yeah, there's always people that are looking down the road at good things, especially when some big news comes out. And there deserves to be some hype. And this year they proved that they can answer the bell.
Let's see what they were saying when Slovis joined the Panthers on the Pitternet.
Can you explain what internet is?
I hear there's rumors on the internets.
And to all those faceless keyboard warriors on Twitter. But we're a good darn football team. I'm proud of these guys.
Joey David on Panther Lair said he needs to be 85% of 2021 Kenny Pickett. About Slovis, Vince.
Yeah.
What do you think of that number? 85% of what Kenny. So what you said, Kenny threw for 4,300 yards, 42 touchdowns. What's 85% of that? I'm not doing the math.
Well, I think 85%. He plays at 2/3 of that, multiplied by 5/8.
Yeah. Then you have to divide that also by a factor 6.95, and then also throw in, I think, a divisible of 3. And also, if you have a quotient, multiply that by 7, then to the 85th percentile. Then that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I was going to say something like that. Or if you take, the difference in their 40 times and you look at the quadratic formula of those, that's really where it comes out to be when you look at the difference between these two players.
I'm not Pythagoras, so I'm not going to try.
Yeah,
but I feel the 85% in the ballpark, but I'd like to see 100% of Kedon Slovis.
Yeah. Well, I think what Joey David was saying was that if we get 85% of what Kenny Pickett did this year, that we're going to have a good season next year. And that could be true. I mean, it's hard to say exactly. There were some close games that we had that Kenny Pickett really just stepped up and made some huge plays for the team and carried them to a victory. There's going to be some changes. It's not like it's going to be all the same players, but this is going to be definitely a big part of it. How much is there a drop off? We've already been hearing those questions, and they're gonna continue to show up.
And also, I don't need to go to Thackeray Hall to do the math on this. 85% of Kenny Pickett's statistics for Kedon Slovis would be pretty damn good. Also considering, I think next year, no matter who the offensive coordinator is, will be hopefully, because Pat Narduzzi's picking him and probably wants to do this, be a little bit more dedicated to the run. They have 3 solid running backs I think they can do that with. They have an offensive line that's hopefully going to build up a little bit, strength and conditioning this offseason. That are guys that are now, there's a couple at least aspiring for the NFL or pro football, maybe in the spring even. They aren't going to rely on Kedon Slovis maybe the way they did Kenny Pickett.
Well, you do need to be able to pass the football in order to win.
But you shouldn't be having to throw 60 times a game, especially the way they were trying to make him do that at USC sometimes.
I mean, you that is a great point. You got 3 talented running backs, and you got an offensive line that could be having most of its starters back. And even if they don't, I mean, you had some injuries there at the end of the season, and so you had a few offensive linemen that started 3 or 4 games that weren't starters at the beginning of the season.
It's really shaking out to be more of like hopefully a pro style offense.
Well, I mean that's they ran a fairly pro style.
They did
offense,
pretty fair amount
this year, and I would hope that they would continue to do that. I don't want to, we talk about, you hear a lot about this Brennan Marion and the go-go offense, which I haven't done enough research on myself to say. So I don't know if it's a gimmick offense. I don't know if it's more of a pro style offense. I know that there's some pro concepts in it that some NFL coaches have been using, speaking very highly of it. So it's hard to say exactly, what the offense is going to look like until we do. But I hope it's what they ran this year. I think is something that they could be successful with. It wasn't just to spread them out and throw all the time.
Yeah.
But, they had enough. I know we criticized them that they didn't run enough at times. But
or go under center enough.
Yes. I know we criticized that, but, eventually
use the size of and the quality of the tight ends enough, maybe.
Yeah. But eventually the running game did work. Eventually it did. And hopefully, it works a little bit better. And maybe there's, with a new offensive coordinator in there, there's going to be a little bit more dedication to that. If they're a little bit more balanced next year, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. And when we say pro, obviously the line's blurring between the college game and pros a little bit these days. But I think a more controlled and a dedication to the run, I think, is a lot. What you think about when you say the run, although. The run game, I feel, is like coming back to the NFL, too. It's always, things come in waves. This era of throwing a ridiculous amount is here, but I think being balanced is very important, and Pitt has the, personnel to do that next season, regardless of a stud quarterback coming into town ready to sling. They don't need to hopefully not buy into that and the hype and all that and have to feel like they have to deliver this messiah of a quarterback who's going to get the Heisman that Kenny couldn't get. He just needs to come in and play a good, balanced, pocket passing quarterback position for Pitt to be good. 85% of Pickett, whatever you want to call it. Kedon Slovis doesn't need to do too much coming here. I'll say that. I think there's a template for his success, and he could follow it.
Yep.
Yeah, and also with the Pitternet, there are people who saying Max Brown, so then they'll throw it. It's getting pushed and pulled, and there's the ridiculous optimism, the negativity, and if you're in the middle, you say, man, this looks like. If you look at it fairly, I think you say this looks like a positive score for Pitt, but it could wind up a disaster because things happen in college football.
Well, I'll say this, it seemed like most people thought that they needed to go out and get a quarterback in the transfer market.
You were saying it mid-season.
Yeah, a lot of people felt that way. I'm not saying I was 100% on board with that, but I'd say most people said that they needed to because they didn't trust Patti and they thought the other guys were too young. So that's what they did. And if you look out of the transfer quarterbacks available, who would you have wanted instead of Slovis?
Yeah,
I'd be interested. We talked about it a lot last week.
Far between.
I'd be interested to hear what other people were, or people that are not happy with this, what they would have done differently, and who they would have taken.
Real quick, you brought up the Go-Go Offense. You can purchase Brennan Marion's book on the Go-Go Offense in paperback on Amazon.
Yeah, how do you feel about that? I mean, why would you leave all your secrets out?
Because if it works, it works. I mean, June Jones and all the those guys and air raid people, like everybody sells their secrets. This is the society we live in, and they still are successful.
Yeah.
Stop it. Stop all those crossing patterns.
Yeah, you're right.
But I like it. Pitt has. I'm leaning towards if you want to keep, especially if you want to keep all those quarterbacks. Maybe you do promote from within with Brennan Marion.
I'll say this. I would do whatever it took to keep him, mainly because what he did with the wide receiver position this year was just absolutely just miraculous. I'm nothing against Jordan Addison, who's a tremendous talent, but all these other receivers that they had, they played so much better. Now, how much of that was Kenny Pickett and how much of that was them? I'll say this: I think these guys really helped make Kenny Pickett's year as big as it was. I think Kenny Pickett played great last year, but just too many dropped balls were a problem. And that somehow got cured up with Coach Marion here, a young, hungry guy, active on the recruiting scene, and obviously proven to be an effective coach. I would do whatever it took to try to keep this guy. I really would.
Yeah, I'm just skimming more about philosophies and reactions to the go-go offense that he's now becoming famous for. It requires a pretty mobile quarterback, but my favorite part about it is there's a lot of sets where there's two running backs on the same side next to the quarterback. Very different. So it could be interesting. And I don't know if that's the pro style we want to see.
Well, that's the thing.
But does he adjust for personnel?
Well, I think he'd have to. I mean, we don't have any truly mobile or truly running quarterbacks on this team.
Yeah, exactly. So we shall see. Let's go one more from the Pitternet, though. This is at Corey Kramer on Twitter, who said, in NYC, Pitt hoodie on, a random LSU fan ran up to me, told me to F off, and then ran away.
Now, Alan, you lived in Louisiana and covered LSU for several years, so I got to ask you about this. I mean, is there some sort of heat that we don't know about?
No, I mean they owe us a debt of gratitude.
They do. They absolutely do for that 07 championship.
LSU winning it all is because of Pitt. They know this. I was down there. They always gave. I got thank you. Hey, T-Boy, thanks for the win back then. I got that. I don't know. I think this was just someone angry in New York. Maybe it was a hobo who found an LSU hoodie and then was just screaming at this person because they want to give him any loose change. I don't know.
It seemed really surprising to me. I don't know. Maybe just SEC fans just don't want to see anybody else getting any credit for anything.
I know, that's true. I saw some people who saw Kenny Pickett during the Heisman ceremony say, this guy played in the SEC at an SEC stadium. He would have crapped his pants. And then Pitt fans quickly reminding this bozo, he went to Tennessee. He beat him. Shut up. Go grab a piece of loose chicken and calm down. Come on. I don't know where that comes from. But Corey Kramer, hopefully you enjoyed your stay in NYC. I know Pitt basketball did.
Yeah, they did. Huge victory over St. John's there.
Former rival.
Yeah, a former Big East foe. The Panthers, obviously not a great season so far on the hardwood, but they're getting they've won a couple in a row here.
They're a fourth quarter team, as Billy Hillgrove says.
They are. They're going to need to start playing all four quarters. ACC play coming up here. It's going to be a tough road, but we'll see what happens.
I almost went to St. John's,
Yes, I do.
First school that accepted me back in 04, 05.
Oh.
This could have been a Red Storm podcast.
If you do want to start a Red Storm podcast,
check out our sponsors. PrettyEasyPodcast.com. I'd listen to it for sure, especially if it's St. John Hoops. But we like Pitt Hoops here. We'll be talking more about them down the road, but we got plenty more Pitt football to talk. Obviously, next week breaking down the Peach Bowl, and obviously it's the holidays. We're going to be seeing some family. Hopefully everybody's going to stay safe during the holidays, and you're able to converse with your family about Pitt football and the bright future in Kedon Slovis. I know I just got to town today, ran into some family, and they didn't believe me when I told them the rumors, and they said they'd believe it when they saw it. And people around town, maybe they don't believe it yet, Vince, but it happened. Pitt got the SC quarterback.
Yeah, I mean we haven't had this news out for too long, so we haven't gotten a full consensus of everybody around town. But we did hear what some people had to say.
Another Saturday coming, and the Panthers are playing. Time to find out what the Panthers are saying.
I think that Pitt's got some team they're working on down there.
Yeah, you hear Narduzzi landed that kid from Southern Cal.
Oh, the quarterback they had.
Yeah, but I heard he's coming in to play corner.
That's why he's a great coach. He's always recruiting them athletes. They'll commit to the team and play wherever, no matter what. They just buy in, to all the Narduzzi philosophies.
Hell to Pitt.
What the Panthers are saying.
That's what the Inzers are saying. A lot of hype around this Kedon Slovis news here. It seems like there was so much negativity last week about Kenny Pickett not playing in this Peach Bowl. and now all of a sudden, everybody is hyped up again. I guess we are, at least. I guess we'll see what other people are saying throughout the week. But I cannot be more hyped for this Peach Bowl and for the next season here in 2022 with hopefully Kedon Slovis leading the Panthers to defend that ACC championship.
I just can't wait to read the Phil Steele magazine and see where he's putting us now, because we immediately got into the preseason ACC discussion, and we are in December of this current season still. But, man, next season just feels like it could be special, if anything, if not just exciting. And it feels good to have a team that looks like they're on the track to have stability in the Coastal finally and maybe not be as frustrating as they've been the past decade.
Yeah, it looks like that. There's set up for some stability and for some consistent play. Believe it or not,
or the words we just spoke have doomed us all and more the same is on the way.
Yeah. Well, I will say, they did do it this year. They did. They proved a lot of people wrong, and hopefully they can continue that.
Because of course, Pitt does it this year, but a lot of us, we know, can't believe it. And then they'll say, I'll see them do it again.
Yeah.
And well, look at they're trying.
Yeah. Would you describe, do you think next season's going to be like a night on the Sunset Strip?
Oh, I hope so, because if this year was the night on the Sunset Strip, the morning after the Sunset Strip is not what we want next year. We want this to be an all-nighter at the Key Club, baby. 2022 ACC, Kedon Slovis leading the way. You think they'll give him number 13? No, number 8?
I don't think they're giving him number 13.
Hammond's not giving up number 9. Is he?
I don't know. We'll have to ask him.
We'll see. Slovis did tweet or Instagrammed out, right? He's had the number 9 jersey on in his picture.
He did. Yeah. So there's going to be, I don't know, maybe
Hammond's going to the transfer portal. I want my number.
No, I don't
First
think that.
transfer because he didn't get his number.
Do you think it'll be more just, Slovis is going to buy Hammond a Kenny Pickett burger every week in exchange for the jersey number?
Or have him on a segment of his podcast he does for NIL and charity.
Yeah, that could happen too. I don't know. Maybe he's just going to wear number 8.
Yeah, or maybe. We'll see. All I know is that I'm excited also to see what Kedon Slovis does NIL wise. Well, the Kenny Pickett show was really fun this year. It was great. Yeah. My only advice is, if you're not going to do our podcast, Kedon, I'd say stay away from the Fan. Go on like the X or something. The Kedon Slovis show on 105.9 The X.
I don't think he's welcome there.
No?
I think there's too much heat in that kitchen.
He doesn't even know anyone there yet. Why is there already heat with Kedon Slovis and
I think just with Pitt and the X, I think.
Oh, man. Maybe he could go further down the dial then. I don't know. WYEP, where the music matters and Kedon Slovis does his show. That's my vote. We'll see. But that'll come down the road. We got other business to tend to, like the holidays, Vince. Merry Christmas to you. And please stay safe. Don't get into too heated discussions talking about Pitt with family and of course your wife and our co-host Pam, who already has opinions on next season that I need to discuss with her and talk out, because I didn't agree with some things. But you know what? Everyone's going to hash those out, and let's just get to the Peach Bowl first.
Yep. Next week, we got this big Peach Bowl that we are going to be talking about. We're going to be breaking it all down for you next week. A New Year's Six bowl game for the Panthers, a chance to finish in the top 10 in the whole country. That's what's on the line next week in that Peach Bowl. We'll be talking about it. Alan, Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to all the Panther fans out there, and hail to Pitt.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. As always, subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. You can always hit us up at H2P Show if you want to chat on Twitter. That's where we're at. And, of course, if you know a Panther fan in your life, you tell them 2 things. Merry Christmas, and you subscribe to the Hail to Pitt podcast, because what the hell are you doing with your life? If you're a Pitt fan and you're not listening to this show, we're having too much fun, and we're also blasting off into a new year and a new era of Pitt stability in football. Fingers crossed, but it looks like that's the way we're going. We believe. Kedon Slovis is here. The Peach Bowl is coming. What a time to be a Pitt fan. What a Merry Christmas it already is, everybody. Enjoy it, and we'll see you next week to talk Peach Bowl. Hail to Pitt.